This is definitely going to be an eventful video because I have a lot to say, especially with this whole thing that's going down with LA Knight. Nonetheless, we're talking about LA Knight's new faction, new group on WWE, also Britt Baker's new trademark, and also there might be a problem with the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, but is it really a problem? We're going to talk about it all in today's video. If you guys want more videos like this, don't forget to click that subscribe button, ring that bell. This way you can get notified on all of the latest content. Let's jump into it. Let's talk about LA Knight. If you guys didn't know, Knight Model Management seems to be the new gimmick for LA Knight on the main roster. They're doing this stuff on the dark matches prior to the show. And basically what has happened is that, Mace from Retribution was repackaged, and we kind of talked about this before. LA Knight was repackaged into this manager role. Mace was his first client. Now it appears that Mansoor is the second client. Now, I have said, I will continue to defend WWE's decision to have LA Knight as a manager. I even fantasy booked scenarios where he could be a manager of Ronda Rousey. And the reason is not because LA Knight can't be a top star. It's just WWE's roster, there's a lot of people in line for a push, right? There's a lot of things happening, and whether it's good or bad, there's just a lot of stuff happening. I feel like he could get lost in the shuffle, even though he shouldn't be lost in the shuffle. So the idea of him being a manager, putting him with top talent or repackaged talent could be a good way of getting him on TV. And I like that idea. And I also like the idea that, if he doesn't want to manage anymore, he can always go back to being a wrestler, right? Now, with that being said, it appears that WWE has changed the name of Mace to Face. And I don't know what the hell they're thinking here. Okay, you repackage him. Great. But why not just repackage him into something better? Okay, it's cool. These guys come out in suits. They're looking fresh. Like, they're ready to go. Like, they're business people. They're making money. Whatever. From Mace to Face, I don't know what WWE is thinking with these name changes. I've actually defended the name changes too. But sometimes, man, these name changes are absolutely ridiculous. And I think in order for LA Knight to really get over as a manager, he has the mic skills to do it, but he's got to be working with top talent. And it is clear that this is a situation where he is working with talent that is not top talent. In fact, this is the talent that doesn't get used. So they're being repackaged. These people are getting repackaged because they haven't been used. They're not prominent figures on the show. When you repackage them, wouldn't you want to repackage them in a way that kind of presents them as a big deal? Otherwise, they're just another wrestler. And that's where I feel like these name changes definitely come into play. It's so strange. I have no problem with him having this group, but I have a problem with the name changes. It's ridiculous. All right, guys, you may have heard the news that Britt Baker has filed for the DMD trademark. Now, this is a very, very interesting topic because a lot of people are having split conversations or a split opinion on this conversation as to whether or not Tony Khan should allow his talent to trademark their slogans, their gimmicks, their characters, and stuff like that. And obviously, from a business perspective, I can understand why a lot of people would say, hey, Tony Khan, you should be owning these gimmicks and you should be owning these characters like WWE does. From a business sense, I can understand that argument, how it could be good for money. And yes, I agree. But ultimately, I think something that needs to be said here is, and maybe I'm wrong. At the end of the day, I don't have the type of money that Tony Khan has invested into this company. But I think it's also nice that there is a company that exists that says, hey, like, we'll give you the TV time. We will put you out there on television, and we'll give you some freedom, and you can own your gimmick. You can own your trademarks. Like, it's nice that there is a company that allows you to do that. But I understand both sides of the argument, right? Britt Baker owning DMD, I mean, it's a great thing. Britt Baker got completely over with this, and I think very, very highly of Britt Baker and what she's done in AEW, which is why I understand the argument business-wise. AEW should have locked that stuff down, but I guess that is truly why they're an alternative to WWE in that regard with how they treat talent. Whether that's a good or bad business decision, I don't know, but I think maybe the conversation should be less about the business and just more about the positivity that comes with, hey, I can go to AEW, get my own gimmick over, and on top of that, I can own my trademarks. Now, the real question is, will AEW change their stance on this? That's where I see it being a very interesting scenario. But if they don't change their stance on it, it could be a very interesting place for other people to come to. Obviously there's this concern with the roster and TV time, and I get that, right? It might be hard for some people to go to AEW for that reason, especially if they went from WWE where they haven't been used. But I think it is also enticing to say, hey, come here, pitch your ideas, and then, by the way, we're not going to lock down your IPs. Could be a very interesting scenario for them. All right, guys, there's been a lot of talk about the AEW NJPW Forbidden Door pay-per-view. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about this pay-per-view, which is fantastic. I think realistically, a lot of people are starting to see that AEW is catering to the AEW audience. This is definitely not a decision that caters to a more mainstream thing. And you can have your own opinions on that. I think there's good and bad with everything in wrestling. And I think in this specific scenario with AEW, it's great that they cater to their audience. Perhaps maybe there's some things that they can do a little bit more to grow their audience. But if they're happy with the way that they're doing things, obviously that's fine, With that being said, there seems to be somewhat of an issue here. And I don't know if this is really an issue, but basically New Japan doesn't obviously have a women's division. But instead, Stardom is now owned by New Japan. With that being said, there are a lot of people who their concern here is that there won't be women on this card because of that reason. It also appears that Stardom has a pay-per-view, I believe, the day before this show, depending on the time zones. It might be before or after. But it would be very, very hard logistically to travel from the U.S. to Japan and make it in time for both shows. So there might be a small issue here that suggests that women might not be featured on the card. I don't think this is actually a big problem. I think, obviously there's a lot of dream matches here that AEW could put together. Obviously, between Stardom and AEW, there's going to be some difficulty with the women's division, but I still think you could place the women on the card. I also think that there are some talent from Stardom who can also appear on this card as well. They would just have to miss their pay-per-view. If you're NJPW, if you're AEW, if you're Stardom, and you're one of these executives, you want to figure out a way to make this card the best card possible. And you don't want to miss out on putting, Britt Baker on there or whoever it might be. You want your top stars there. And it would not look good if Britt Baker was not there. But that is kind of the scenario that we have here. So I know some people are saying this is a big problem. I don't think it's as big of a problem as people actually expect. I think, especially with the magnitude of this kind of pay-per-view, I think for AEW to have, everybody there, the best of the best, plus NJPW having the best of the best, I think that is absolutely important. Kenny Omega, what's his time frame for injury? That's another thing to consider. You want the best of the best on this card. It's going to be a huge showcase. And maybe this is not something that's going to capture new fans, but maybe new fans will hear about the success of this event, and maybe it leads to a massive wrestling boom. So there's definitely positives that come out of this. It's important that AEW and New Japan get it right. We don't want to see what happened to ROH and New Japan in 2019, and I think this will not be anything remotely close to it, but we'll find out. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you think it's a problem? I personally don't. I think there's a way to get women on the card. I think there's a way to make this the best card possible, even if injuries and stuff might contribute to an issue, but I don't really think it's that big of a deal. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below.